if you wanted to try out Final Fantasy,
Yeah.
you should probably just go ahead. I would say just buy it, try it out. If you want to try it out, I'm gonna try it out with you. Cause like I don't like playing MMOs alone, and I want to try the game.
Well, no, that's not. Yeah, the whole structure of the game is not about that.
Well, you end up getting into it later. You know what I mean? You end up
Right.
getting into guilds and shit later. Like that's just part of it. But
Right.
here's the thing, though. I do also want. So we're gonna be talking about New World, by the way, everyone.
Yeah.
But I want to try that out with you at some point. I know
Right.
that one's a bit more expensive, but I think at some point we should probably get ourselves into New World.
It does seem interesting.
So let's get into the topic here. Just real quick to start us out, I'll go ahead and do it this time, Jack. Hello everybody, this is Spy Pie Gaming TV, and we are a channel focused on the gaming industry and things just going around in games and the people who play them. This is our normal Friday talk, and this one will be structured around the New World game, the New World coming out. It came out 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And anyway, so let's just jump right into it, I guess.
All right. So September 28th was the release date for this game. And from what I understand, it has some mixed reviews, which is kind of funny. We'll get into that in a minute. But so the about this game, it's available on Steam, by the way. The description is explore a thrilling open world MMO filled with danger and opportunity where you'll forge a new destiny for yourself as an adventurer shipwrecked on the supernatural island of Aeternum. Endless opportunities to fight, forage, and forge await you among the island's wilderness and ruins. Channel supernatural forces or wield deadly weapons in a classless, real-time combat system and fight alone, with a small team, or in massed armies for PvE and PvP battles. The choice is yours.
So, before we go into the community reception of it, which has been a bit more fraught with issues that is just plaguing the MMO genre in general, I would like to say that I have heard this game compared like quite regularly now to RuneScape in some ways, the crafting system specifically, where it's very in depth, and I've seen some very interesting things about it. So their auction house thing that they have, like it's kind of like guild stores for ESO.
Yeah.
You can place orders, and then people can just fill those orders.
Yeah.
So like, if you need a specific item and you can't find any of it, you can request an order for it, and anyone who goes by can make a good profit off doing that.
So that does actually sound fairly similar to RuneScape. Now, I haven't played it in quite a while. I played the original version, but I do remember that you could just stand in a bank. Like, you literally just had to stand in a bank, and you could type in the chat and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for this," and you would hope that somebody would walk by that would be able to provide it to you.
Yeah, they have that. They have an order system as well, I think. I don't remember what it was called. It's been a little bit since I've really gotten into it.
Well, I know they've. What is it? They have like RuneScape 3.0 now. So
Yeah.
it's had a couple of updates.
You can still play old school RuneScape, by the way.
Yeah, I downloaded it on my phone for a little bit, and there's entirely too much going on that.
Honestly, like I played it for a little. You saw me playing it on my laptop a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could jump into RuneScape. I don't think I have enough time in my life to actually do RuneScape.
RuneScape is one of the most grind-heavy games probably ever created.
Like I'm a hippie who has no job currently other than YouTube, and I live with my mother, and I still can't find the time to play RuneScape. I don't know how someone does.
Look, you're just gonna have to mine some ore
for like days. Real days.
Or like kill cows.
Yeah, God, dude, the combat in that game. I'll say this: like RuneScape had very simplistic combat, and that really owed to it. You know, it really gave it a lot in its appeal because it was something you could play. Like now, you could just play it on your phone.
Yeah.
But New World has a very action-based combat system.
Yes.
And it reminds me of Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah.
But I would say it's more like the Elder Scrolls games, like the main series, like where it's very, you have to aim more, you have to do this and that. Like it seems more interesting.
Yeah, the two main combat systems that you normally run into in games like this are, there's not like turn-based like what it used to be, but there's a version of it where combat pauses for a second when you go to make a decision, and then you also have the open action combat system, which is also, you know, rather strategic. Can be anyway. Like, you know, if your character just like hands out damage like crazy, it's not, you know, there's maybe a little strategy in that. But
you mean like the Warden? Yeah,
the Warden, yes.
The Warden has a whole lot of strategy, I'm sure.
But, you know, both of them are very enjoyable. Like, I do like the open action combat systems in certain games. Now,
ESO has a very, I would say an in-between combat system where you can tab target and lock onto target specifically.
Yeah.
But you also have a more freeing system where you can just throw things into the world, like traps or whatever.
Yeah, but you got like roll dodge and you know, all that stuff.
ESO
and
is
there's no pausing of what's going on.
Right. I mean, you like World of Warcraft has shown its age very heavily within its own like tab target system.
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy actually uses tab targeting as well, but Final Fantasy Online, I've played a little bit of it. I haven't gotten to max level or anything like that, but I've played a little bit of it, and I would say that its tab target is an update from WoW's tab target. It's different.
Yeah.
It's inherently different because there's a global cooldown that's longer.
So,
but
I have the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I kind of got upset about a little bit. I do understand though, because the game was 3 discs.
Yeah.
And so they're releasing it in like parts.
Yeah, I don't get that for a story game though.
There's a lot.
I know.
There is a lot in Final Fantasy VII.
But it feels like it's something like they promised that game coming out for like years, and then and then they're like,
that's
all right,
so upsetting.
We finally got it out, but it's only part 1. Like,
yeah, and it's not even like. So I've played it. I don't play it as often as I thought I would when I bought it, but I have not made it out of Midgard yet, and that's like a very small fraction of the game.
Oh yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy games have always been extensively long, but still though, going on with what I was really getting at is that ESO has a very, I guess I would consider it more actiony than tab targeting, but New World's combat, from what I've seen, like visually, right, from watching YouTube videos and just general stuff around it, it seems very free flow. It seems almost like I would almost compare it to Dark Souls, but not as difficult. It doesn't seem as difficult as Dark Souls, or as punishing, you know what I mean? But it does seem very, very similar with the dodge rolling mechanics, as well as blocking, the way the blocking looks, at least. The bows look very strange. I like the way the bows are, because you actually have to aim them, right? And not only do you have to aim them, but like, they seem like they're very weighted, like the recoil on them and stuff. And I don't know, I haven't played it, right? But it does seem like a very, very high-end action like game that is also massively multiplayer.
Yeah.
That is something a lot of people have wanted for a very long time, and that's something we haven't been able to get in MMOs for a very long time, is a game that's action combat and MMO. Because I mean, how can an MMO do both really? most of the time, except for like Black Desert Online, which is a Korean MMO, I believe, and those ones have their own structures.
Yeah, that actually had I remember a lot of hype around that before it released.
So I played that for a little while.
Yeah.
And that game is very grindy, not in the same way.
It also has you can play it on mobile as well.
Can you?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I signed up for, what was it? I saw the hype around it, and I'm like, I like games like that, right? So I signed up to be notified when it did come out, because I didn't make it into the, I guess, beta or whatever. But it has a mobile version, so like I downloaded it.
It really does. I didn't know that. That is strange.
On the topic of New World, it's kind of funny. So I mentioned the mixed reviews, and Spy he's read a little more than I have of these reviews, but looking at the ones here, they're really funny. There's a recommended review on Steam. The reviews that I'm looking at are all from Steam. Somebody recommended it, and it literally says it's almost like a New World. But then, like right next to it, it's not recommended unless you like waiting in queue for 3 hours.
Yeah, okay, so talking about that, I feel like Jeff Bezos and the whole crew at Amazon had not learned from the last 20 years of MMO game design that when you make an MMO, always err on the side of more servers, bigger servers, and everything else. Like you can't release an MMO without enough servers. This happens every time. Every MMO starts out, like, and WoW expansions do this every single time they launch, is that there's a queue to get into the game. Jeff Bezos clearly, I mean, he owns like how much of the world now, and he couldn't find a couple extra servers to put on his, flagship now, and I think that's something that's like, this has been standard in MMOs for so long that you almost feel like it's just there's a failure at the beginning.
Yeah.
Always, like you just know it if you play MMOs.
It's like that day one patch idea. Right?
Yeah.
Like
we've had to wait in queue on ESO a little bit, but not long.
No, those are really more from game functions. That's not even really to get into the game, like
like battlegrounds and stuff like that. But still, I mean, like when a patch comes out, when Waking Flame came out, and you remember whenever, I think you were playing whenever, you were playing before the expansion came out.
Yeah.
And do you remember when the expansion came out, we had to wait like a good 20 minutes or something like that to get in?
Yeah.
And that was nothing too bad. But however, on this one, we have like 5-hour waits to get into the game.
Which is crazy. Like you would think, like you were saying, you would think like, hey, we're all right, look, we're going to release this. Let's look at, something else. WoW, or... Because I know ESO is a little different. Like they have servers, but it's more like instanced servers. So it's like you don't see them. You can't pick one. It's North America or Europe, and that's it. Like that's your choices.
Yeah, which is kind of it's good and bad on that.
Yeah, like even RuneScape. Okay.
Yeah.
We mentioned RuneScape earlier. Even RuneScape, like they
have like
the
500 servers now.
You can like load into, right?
There's so many servers on RuneScape.
You would think that if you're going to release, like if I decided tomorrow that I'm going to release this, whatever MMO, right?
Yeah. I'm
going to look at it like the situation. I'm going to look at the situation and go, all right, so how has every other MMO failed whenever it's released? And it's not do that. Like that would be my inclination, right?
Right. And some of it makes me think that it is kind of, I think MMO game developers, or not developers, but the decision makers, really.
Yeah.
I think they err on the side of caution first.
Yeah, because it's like, well, all right, what if it doesn't do well?
Right. I mean, it's an MMO. It's a huge investment.
Yeah, it is.
But I feel like if you're already going that heavy in, you might as well just invest in the servers.
Yeah.
I mean, screw it. Like, if you're releasing an MMO, you have no reason to not have just tons of servers. And then what you can do is, worst case, you just merge them together. Like,
so I'm gonna say this, and I think for the most part that like people that play these types of games would probably agree with me. I think it's probably better to have like a decent game than a really good game, but one that you can get into and play versus a really good game.
with like,
There are
like flawed masterpieces. It's, and then that's
and kind of fix it as you go along, like because if it does well, like don't you know what I mean? Like so readjust where your resources are at. Because I don't want to come across like I'm like shit talking New World or anything. I don't know. Like I haven't played it.
I haven't played it either, and I'm really interested in it. But this is definitely something that if you were looking to buy it, now you have to know that there's a long queue, and it feels like it could have been avoided.
Like
from what I understand,
you sit down to play it, you have to plan that you might like. I might need to go ahead and load it, then I'm gonna go do something because I might not still be in the, I might not get in the game yet.
I have heard there's some updates though. So like Europe apparently had like no servers when they tried to log in for a little bit.
That's not good.
Like they had some real bad issues over in Europe. I understand that it's a whole nother side of the country, side of the world, and Jeff Bezos lives in America. I've heard that.
Well, like Jeff Bezos owns the world.
Yeah.
Or at least like
he owns a good amount
of the internet.
And speaking of Jeff Bezos, you can't name your character Jeff Bezos.
That's so weird.
That is such a that makes me feel weird about it. Like I feel like if you're like everyone knows who's behind it, like in the full, like not behind the game itself, but behind it like monetarily.
Right.
So like I don't get why we can't.
That would be one of those. That would be one of those things. Like, all right, so in ESO, like if you got the name Nerevar, right? Like that's like one of those things where you're like, look at me, I got this fucking name. Like,
right?
It's just weird. Like, it's not important necessarily, but it's just it strikes me as weird.
So like, WoW had some of those things, like character name restrictions, and the reason for it was like lore characters. You couldn't name yourself the same name as a big lore character.
Right.
That makes sense. That's like, okay, you don't want people to like be trolling with the name Thrall.
Right.
While Thrall's standing there. But like, that's whatever, I get it because lore reasons. But then you got like, this is such an out of game thing.
Right.
It's like, this isn't like, Sir Henry the 14th. Like, you can't name yourself that.
Like, maybe you're going to run into Bezos in the game.
I mean, maybe the Jeff Bezos name is restricted for just Jeff Bezos. And maybe that's what he did.
He might want to play the game.
I don't think he plays video games.
I mean, in between launching rocket ships,
space
shuttles.
I don't think most of the people at Amazon, not necessarily the game studio themselves, but Amazon mostly, I don't think most of them play video games.
I would say probably not the higher ups.
No.
But
I mean, then again, how many WoW developers do you think play WoW?
Yeah.
I don't think any of them. But really though, out of all of it, like, it's just better to err on the side of like, hey, maybe we should just go ahead, throw 1 million servers at this game.
Yeah.
Worst case, we merge them.
Right.
Best case, they're all full.
Right.
So we either make money, or we're like, we're like, all right.
Yeah, because this is it's obviously upset people, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
and it's understandable that it would. It's when you bought a game, you bought it to play it, and
you can't play it now. You're stuck in a line.
That's an issue. Like everybody, when Asmongold switched from WoW to Final Fantasy, and like everybody jumped in and crashed it, like. People that play Final Fantasy regularly were pissed off.
Well, yeah, I mean, Asmongold's crashed a couple games now, actually.
I believe that, yeah.
So he's crashed the WoW servers so many times because, like, hundreds of people come and run at him. It's kind of funny, but he is a very popular streamer, phenomenal streamer. He's got a very good, like, atmosphere with his channel and all that stuff too. So like whenever he starts doing something big, like
Yeah.
I think it's time to start. All right, everyone, Asmongold's doing something. Start up server number 400.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know how you prepare for Asmongold.
You just, I mean, you get good with your infrastructure, you know, like.
You have to be real good for Asmongold on that, man. He will crash your servers before you can.
That's, I think maybe that's a point that probably can't be stressed enough. Like the infrastructure of a game, really, like the stability of a game really needs to be intact, like concrete intact.
So
right?
yeah. So right now I have the Steam charts pulled up. This is how many people are playing as of in the last 24-hour peak. There have been 757,000 players on New World.
That sounds like a pretty good number.
I mean, that's, you know,
like in relation to other games, I don't know, but that sounds like a pretty good number.
I mean, right now we're at almost 11 o'clock at night, and there are 550,000 people playing on Steam.
Right.
And
well,
that,
like us weirdos, that's, you know, that's what's going on.
I mean, that's a whole lot of people. Like 500,000 on an MMO.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like a lot for like an MMO, because we're used to seeing like games like WoW have like 15, or not 15, but 10 million, like back in Wrath of the Lich King, whenever it was the most popular thing ever. And then even WoW went down to 5 million before they stopped reporting numbers because they got scared.
Right.
And then, but now we don't know the current subscriber base of a lot of games.
So is this number, the number you're referencing, is this like all at once? This many people are on?
Yeah, playing 1 hour ago, which is just an hour ago. Not even, 550,000 people. 554,000.
Right.
That's a pretty good solid player base for an MMO. I mean, that's 550,000 people that you potentially could interact with.
Yeah.
And I mean, let me look and see if we can find Final Fantasy subscriber numbers. So I'm looking it up, and okay, so according to a rough estimate, there are about 2.6 million players in Final Fantasy XIV every day. So there you go. And I don't know if that's, if that's really true, but we can see that out of all the games right now, like let's look at MMO populations, they say that Final Fantasy has been taking over a lot. I don't know their current subscribe number. It says that right here, it says 33 million. I doubt that. It says daily players is 3 million.
Yeah.
That's really, really good for an MMO.
Yeah.
And I would say that out of all of the... Here we go. Here they are. So we have World of Warcraft is still top, apparently, on MMO populations. I don't know if their numbers are entirely accurate.
Right.
But, however, we're looking at... Let's look here at Elder Scrolls Online. Elder Scrolls Online has a daily players of 550,000. That's what they say. Now, I don't know if we could take
so
it
we have a game that launched at what an established game already or currently is.
Yeah. We have
Which I guess makes sense. Something new came out.
Now, I say
people flock to it.
I would say taking subscriber numbers into account is the best way to look at it. Even though like Elder Scrolls Online can be played for free, and Final Fantasy XIV has a free trial. New World, however, there is a consideration here that is different than most MMOs, is that it also has a $40 upfront cost.
Right.
Elder Scrolls Online is only $20.
Right.
And Final Fantasy is also $20 as well to get in.
Right.
So, taking as it is, there is no sub fee from what I understand about New World. So
I've seen that.
Which is strange again because most MMOs have that. You just buy in and play. Now that does probably lead to more cosmetic things in like a store, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I would venture to say that if it does take off, they will find some way to help support the back end of the game through some kind of like subscription,
I would say that
format.
I would say that New World has a couple different ways of doing it. but I think that they're probably going to do a subscription base. They do it with their Amazon Prime. I imagine that they probably see that as a profitable decision.
You know what? And that's a good point. They could do that. They could jack, Amazon Prime by like $10 or something like that, and
get a bundle.
Yeah,
they could do a lot. I mean, they really could do a whole lot with that.
Yeah, because they have so much already. Like you got, they have music, they have the Kindle like library and all that.
I mean, yeah, think about it. Instead of, you could either pay for the game or Amazon Prime, or like for whatever, a little bit more,
right,
or a little less actually in total. You could get a couple different services for the same price, or you know what I mean? It could really turn out to be something big like that. And yeah. I don't think they're going to do that first. I think at first they'll probably launch something along the lines of, if I had to guess, considering Bezos' money, I think that he probably understands a little bit more than we think about it. And MMOs have cost $15 a month for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit of my mind that says he'll probably make the price 10. And that sounds backwards because he's such a rich man.
Well, it's not so much Amazon's cash reserve as it is Amazon as a money press.
Yeah.
Like it is its own,
they
print money. Like
if they said it like that, where you pay $40 for the game and have a $10 subscription, they would open up a lot of doors to people who are like, well, I don't really want to pay $15 a month, and they could just fucking advertise the hell out of that.
Yeah. They would catch a lot of attention.
They would catch because they would be breaking what the formula is, and because they're not an established game developer studio yet, they've made one game.
Right.
They really could start shaking things up, and I think that if they do, because Jeff Bezos and Amazon have so much money that they could force competition to settle on their terms.
Yeah, and that'll probably, that's so competition in any kind of market, industry, whatever term you want to use, is a good thing for that reason. And it's kind of, honestly, like, all right, so I'm going to go off like into a different weird, it's not in any way connected to this, but it's like the Planet Fitness model, right? Like Planet Fitness, as far as gyms go, like they are the cheapest gym like membership that you can buy, or they were at one point, and now every other gym has got some $10 version, of membership.
Yeah,
like,
and they're always stripped down too.
Yeah,
but see, the thing is that if Jeff Bezos and Amazon decided that it was $10 a month instead, what they would be doing is, for a lot of players of MMOs, the monetary cost is a function of it. Like, you have to put that in.
Yeah.
If you're playing WoW right now, I don't know why you are, but if you are playing WoW right now, I'm kidding.
No,
but
it's not.
A little bit. I'm not kidding entirely. If you're playing WoW right now, you're paying $15 a month. If you're playing Elder Scrolls Online right now, you don't have to pay, but if you really are actually engaging, you're paying $15 a month.
If you're not paying $15 a month, you're not playing the game.
Realistically, you're not getting
bag, and that one thing breaks the game for you.
It does. So, realistically, if you are in a situation where you are playing a game regularly, an MMO regularly, you are paying $15 a month right now.
Yeah.
Out of all of them, you are paying $15 a month right now.
Right.
Or the Euro, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not the same, but you get what I'm saying. And if New World was to do that, how many players do you think they could pull away from other games just by making the price cheaper?
So, you know what? That's an interesting thought, and I kind of have an opposing opinion to that.
Playing devil's advocate a little bit.
Well, here's the thing: each game offers its own vibe, right? Like it has its own thing. Yes, they all, a lot of them share a lot of systems like crafting, and I was reading, like, New World has professions, and you can literally spend hours on professions and never quest at all.
Yeah, and you can even level up through crafting.
Right.
Which is crazy.
You have that, ESO, you could do the same thing with that. Like, there's a lot of stuff to do where you don't have to do the quest, but it's like, it's about the story and the game, how immersive it is, and that's that's honestly the reason we were talking about Final Fantasy, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan.
ESO is more of a laid-back game as well. Even though it has a very hardcore base,
yeah,
it is a very, it's more of a, I would call it the MMO retirement home.
Okay, yeah, it kind of is.
It's one of
It's a harder lore system, like,
yeah,
to accept, right? Or not to accept, but to like get into, because the lore is not laid out for you.
And it has a lot more, like, ESO is very heavily based on questing and adventuring out, and more than like raids.
Yes.
Like, raiding is a part, it's a function, but like,
yes,
even if raiders, like, you have to quest.
Yeah.
You have to do, or not even if you don't quest, then you have something else that you do outside. Like, there are things in the world that you're in more than just a raid. Like, ESO is a very laid back, older philosophy of game.
Yes.
Final Fantasy brings its own, like, Final Fantasy thing. Because Final Fantasy is its own thing. I'd almost consider it its own genre. Because it's very different.
It very much feels like. So I have, what is it? Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, I think is the name of it. I feel terrible for not remembering the name, but I have that app downloaded on my phone. The game, it's a very good game. It has a good storyline, like, and there's a lot of other stuff that's going on in it. Like,
if you can follow a Final Fantasy storyline.
You can.
Sometimes they get very Kingdom Heartsy.
Well, here's the thing: they're all disjointed in some way, right? Because
different worlds.
So Final Fantasy 9 didn't run into Final Fantasy 10, which didn't run into anything else. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're all different. They're all entirely different games, but they share certain aspects, and they've done a really good job. Like, there's reoccurring things. Like, there's a character named Sid in every Final Fantasy game. There are chocobos in every Final Fantasy game.
There are things that tie the worlds together in a way.
But it's not the storyline, right? So, like, it's unique in that way.
New World doesn't have a story as much, from what I've understood. I mean, it has its own story, but it's not coming off of success from other stories, which does allow it to have a little bit more creativity with this writing. Like, if you were to, sometimes, I as a lore nerd myself in Elder Scrolls, I have a very hard time accepting some of the Elder Scrolls lore put in ESO. But that's because of how they write it.
Yeah, and they took, so that particular game, as opposed to the single player games that you get on, that release, like, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, like, they took on one area of the entire continent.
Yes.
So ESO is taking on the entire continent of Tamriel, and employed the idea of, like, I haven't ran into it yet in the questing, but they've employed the idea or the concept that exists behind the Dragon Break.
Yeah.
So
they've employed a lot of the themes of the Elder Scrolls universe. However, New World doesn't have any themes of its universe yet. It can be whatever they really want it to be. That is something that is new for a lot of MMO players. It's a game that has its own, it's individual right now. I mean, if you consider, even World of Warcraft came off of the success of the tactical games of Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, right? And these are the RTS games. And so now, they made World of Warcraft. It's a game off of those games.
Right.
And Elder Scrolls Online comes off those games. Final Fantasy comes off those games. And I think a lot of people are looking for a new universe to get invested in. I know I am. I definitely really like new universes and games to get invested in. I mean, Dragon Age is a game franchise I really like, right? But Dragon Age also has Dragon Age things, so there's a lot of Like, you have to overlap and things like that. If you want to play The Witcher 3, you really want to play Witcher 2 and 1 because you want to know the story and whatnot.
Yeah.
And this just allows for a lot of new things they can do. They can take it in so many different ways that don't have restrictions yet. They don't have things that hold back the story or pins in the story of where things have been as much.
Yes. So I have New World pulled up on the actual website for it. The story, the description that it gives of the story is a very it's not so much generic as it is. It's very open-ended. It leaves things very open-ended. So
they probably should for their first release of it. Expansions will come in.
They will. I'm sure they will. Like if the game does well, it's gonna happen.
I mean, it's already comparable to ESO on subscribers, so that's
right.
That's definitely something to look at.
It is. But as we've talked about in several of the more recent videos, like the MMO landscape is kind of, it's shifting and changing and stuff like that. So, but like it gives a description of, like the headline is Aeternum calls, and essentially, like it's 2 paragraphs, and essentially what it says is you're shipwrecked on this island that like has, is imbued with like fantastical magic like qualities and stuff like that, and at this point, like you get, like I mentioned earlier, you choose in what direction you go. It almost sounds like, so the couple of videos that I did on Albion online, it almost sounds a little bit like that.
It's very Fable-like in that way, huh? Yeah, because it's you choose your own fate. A hero's guild who trains you to be just powerful, and you could become a villain.
Right. So did mention that it's classless, which is interesting. I like that.
I've had issues with classless design before.
There are issues with that if it's not done right. I agree with that.
From what I've seen, it's very interesting. I like muskets. They have muskets in there.
Yeah, I was reading that. They have it's a whole range of like everything,
They have bows, muskets, throwing weapons. Like, that's a large amount. That's more weapons than Elder Scrolls Online has, for sure. And a wider range of weapons. And I tell you this, when it comes to us actually end up playing it, I'm sure we probably will play it.
Yeah.
And whenever it comes to playing it, I kind of want to make a swashbuckler kind of character. That sounds really fun. Like, run around with I'm watching this little animation right here they have on the Steam page, and look at that guy's rapier that he has. It's just it's just awesome. And that dude's flame staff looks way better than most games could output before. And visually, the game looks really good.
It does, yes.
It is a scarily good looking game for an MMO. There are not very many MMOs that try on the graphics side as much anymore. See, look, here you go, Jack. Here's some screenshots of it. And, the game looks really, really good.
It does, yeah.
And I'm looking at the PC specs on it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you're playing, you're probably going to play on PC. I don't know if it's even on consoles, but
it's likely not. I guess.
The highest end it requires, for recommended, is a GTX 970, which is something that is a good amount back. That's a few years back on hardware, and surprisingly enough, I haven't heard anyone complain, from my opinion or from what I've seen of any frame issues.
Right. So what you just mentioned, is how you make a game accessible.
Yes, you make,
because not everyone has a high-end computer, right?
The minimum here,
or
even
laptop.
The minimum's really low, honestly. A GTX 670.
Yeah.
670.
Yeah.
That is 3 generations back from the recommended, which is 3 or 4 generations devoid from what we're at now.
Right.
That is I had a GTX 630 for my first graphics card, or GT 630, not even GTX.
Yeah.
And that was my first graphics card it was not good, but at the time it was okay. And like that's a pretty old card, man.
Yeah.
That's 24. Well, hold on. Yeah, I got mine in 2014, 2013.
Yeah.
So we're looking at 2013 tech.
Yeah.
Roughly. I can't remember exactly when. If that's pretty accessible to modern hardware.
I would say so, yeah. Like, I mean, I have the laptop that I own that I purchased, I don't know, in the last 6-8 months. It's been within the last year. Has, what is it, APU? Has an APU where it's like...
Yeah, you have your graphics and your CPU are one. I would also like to say, though, it is only 50 gigs as well, which is 30 gigs smaller than Elder Scrolls Online and a whole 50 gigs lighter than WoW.
Yeah.
As well as...
That's impressive, actually.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, with the texture sizes, I can't even imagine how they fit it in 50 gigs.
That makes me wonder if the game itself currently is not in a much smaller version of what it will end up being.
I imagine it will. With the success that it's gotten so far, I imagine expansions and DLC stuff will come quickly. I'd also like to say, though, for you, this might be an issue. How much RAM do you have? Do you have 8 or 16? I don't remember. So
and that's bad. I know that's bad.
So the minimum is 8 gigs. Now, that is something that we've been shifting towards. Like 16 gigs is something that you kind of require for PC gaming anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean 8 gigs for minimum. That's a lot higher than most MMOs on RAM. Mm-hmm. I'll say that because typically RAM is like one of those things that has been going up a lot nowadays. Like people really, if you have not invested in getting some higher end gigs now, you really need to. I would say if you want to play this game or any of the new modern games, because they really like to utilize your RAM, and Google Chrome likes to just eat it.
Yeah. Google Chrome has gotten a little out of hand. It started as like the alternative to like Mozilla and stuff like that, and now it's like the most used browser. And I might be saying that and misquoting it, but it is. I know it is heavily used.
I mean, most people I know use Google Chrome, and most phones come with Google Chrome now.
Well, like Microsoft Edge is just shit.
Dude, yeah, don't even get me started. I try to forget that exists. Whenever people say Microsoft Edge, I don't even remember that name being it. It was it was
Internet Explorer.
Yeah.
And that sucked.
I mean, Internet Explorer was really bad, and Microsoft Edge is like I would almost call it an upgrade from Internet Explorer.
It's better than Internet Explorer. So like, here's the thing too. So I remember Chrome being released, and that's when everybody realized, hey, Internet Explorer sucks real bad.
So Internet Explorer now looks like Google Chrome pretty much too.
Yeah. So
I think Microsoft, man, they gotta figure out how to make a browser or just stop.
Microsoft thing. Like, and I don't know who drives this. I don't know where this comes from, but like their thing is they are consistently like one half step behind and competing with the wrong competitor. Like they did Bing, right? And like that's a direct competition with Google search. Like Google owns the search thing. Like they've established that, And
it's funny that they have. So Google, so Microsoft did Bing.
Yeah.
Which is also a competitor to their own. Like Bing is his own. They really just don't know how to market, I think. They do some things like, all right, so Xbox, they did good.
Yeah,
I mean they made their first Xbox was just a PC with like software that was different.
Yeah, it's
like they really just were like, look, we're a PC company. We know how to make PCs sometime.
I remember So talking about it makes me remember the Red Ring of Death.
God, don't remind me.
That was kind of funny.
I think everyone who owned an Xbox 360, like day one, has owned like 3 Xbox 360s.
Yeah.
Like, because you just didn't own one. You
Yeah.
sent it in, and then they were like, all right, we fixed it. And then they sent it back to you, and it wasn't
To be
fixed.
fair, though, like Sony put out an edition, and I feel like it was, if my memory serves me correctly, it was a slim edition.
Oh, God, that one was bad. The PlayStation 3?
Yeah, and it would just catch on fire.
Yeah.
So
I do remember. You remember that they made this is gone off really on a weird tangent, but do you remember, like, so the PlayStation 3 was built on like a really strange architecture?
it was. Yeah.
That like, so
People have harnessed it to mine Bitcoin.
yeah, I believe that because it's
They have.
strangely efficient.
They built like massive servers.
Like,
with
it's-
them.
It's probably it is
Or
the most
server
powerful is the most powerful computing of that generation.
Yeah.
That was just completely unoptimized for people who didn't know how to optimize on it.
Yeah.
So like Oblivion on it. I knew a buddy of mine who had it on that at the time, and it was the vampire quest was like like completely bugged. So if you became a vampire and you wanted to cure it, you couldn't.
That's messed up.
So I remember, because you would hand in all the materials. You handed in like 3-4 black soul gems.
Yeah.
You had to hand in like a bunch of materials that were from like really like higher end content, or not higher end, but like in-game stuff.
Yeah.
So you'd hand in all these like really nice stuff,
Yeah.
and you'd walk outside to wait a day for her to brew the potion, and then she just would never brew it. Like it was just broke on the PlayStation 3, and it never got fixed. And it's just funny.
I remember reading, like, while we're talking about it, I remember reading, because I was like, when it came out, I was really upset that, so like PS2 was backwards compatible, so
Yeah.
I suddenly didn't need my PS1 or PSX, whichever model you had anymore. So when PS3 came out, it was not reverse compatible, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do with my PS2 games that I enjoy,
Right.
Now I have to maintain 2 systems.
Well, because that would be more work for them, slightly more work that would make their customers happier.
What happened out of everything that I read is actually, it alluded to exactly what you're talking about. Like, it was they built it on the back of a system that was so different that it was just it was like, the way it was described, it was an insane amount of work to like make things port over from previous systems, so they just didn't do it.
The PlayStation 3 was a mess. I mean, it's almost as much of a mess as how every time an MMO launches, we have to wait in queue.
Yeah.
You'd think, this part just catches me though. And I've been playing MMOs for a long time. I know you weren't playing very many games until Elder Scrolls, right? And you didn't play WoW, and you didn't play any of the other MMOs that were coming out around those times, right? So you missed all the MMO stuff mostly, but
Yeah, I did. I took a rather lengthy break from gaming.
so not having MMOs in your life at the time, which probably saved you a lot of money and happiness, you were essentially, you just didn't get to see all the bullshit we had to deal with to get here. And this is just one of those things that if you've been playing MMOs for like, I'd say any more than a year or two, you know that every time one of them launches an expansion or a new game, there's just gonna be issues. And I don't know if it can be fixed, honestly, some of them. Because MMO game design, like, kind of requires a little bit of leap of faith.
Oh, so I guess so, to break from topic here for a second, back on New World, which I guess is actually the topic of this discussion
It's
here,
supposed to be the topic, but we
Yeah.
talked about the PlayStation 3 for a little while.
and a bunch of other stuff. But so they have factions in the game. You can be in the Marauders, the Syndicate, or the Covenant.
I'm going Syndicate.
So Syndicate is working in the shadows and dealing with secrets. Members of the Syndicate use their boundless guile and intellect in pursuit of forbidden knowledge.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Marauders.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that.
Marauders are the might makes right group, and then the Coven are the divine champions. So, look, if I got the choice between barbarian and paladin, I think I'm gonna take rogue. I don't know why I do that. I don't know why. I always got to find a way to make an evil character.
Wow, they are claiming thousands of weapons, armor, and other goods which you can forge yourself.
I imagine that also that probably implies low level weapons as well. I think they're counting every individual weapon, but
yeah, but like thousands.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Right out of the gate.
With from what I've understood, food is also a really important part about it. Remember, I was talking to you about it.
Yeah.
Is that you actually eating, like you don't regain health unless you've eaten.
So here's an interesting concept, and this has actually been encountered. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that somebody developing this game looked at Albion online, because here it says roll the market, and
Jeff Bezos.
It's a player-driven market.
From what I've understood, there's also even homes and stuff. Like, there's player housing, I believe, and yeah, like it's.
So their answer to the jobless system is combat attributes and weapon masteries.
Oh, strength, dex, con, and intelligence and focus.
So we're going back to like tabletop.
I like that. Have you scrolled down to where it says the war? There's a group.
Do you fuck with the war?
Do you fuck with the war?
I can't help it.
I don't.
There's a whole lot of little dicky going on.
Just don't know how to react to the forces. War is the pinnacle of PvP in New World. Epic siege warfare and on a massive scale. With 50 player teams of attackers and defenders fighting for control and victory. The outcome of each war determines which company controls contested territory and settlements.
So that also applies to invasions. Right above it.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Those who control the towns control resources and confer benefits to their fellow faction and company members.
Yeah. So it sounds like a Cyrodiil kind of setup.
Right, but this seems to be a bit more permanent, where you actually like own a city.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that if somebody knocks on your door and kicks your shit in, they take it back.
I imagine it will become very hostile, but that is very interesting. I wonder if they have PvP servers or how that works, but...
So, from the way this reads, and I haven't clicked into the more about stuff, but the way this reads, so like, you have expeditions, which is apparently the first group combat that you encounter, unlocks at level 25 for you.
That's their dungeon content.
Yeah. And then you have Outpost Rush.
That one looks interesting. It's PvP VE, which is player versus environment.
Yeah.
That sounds hectic and fun.
That's for teams of 20 from competing factions.
Man, they really have large groups.
I think that's good because, and I believe that I mentioned this. If I haven't mentioned it, I posted something about it in the Steam community. Oh, you know what? I did say this. Whenever so in our Steam community, whenever I was updating it for the Allocator Desert dolmen farming thing.
Yeah.
I had made the statement I added in the statement of my opinion is that there should be I get that there's a lot of players of MMOs that want to just do their thing. I get that, and they want to interact when they want to interact, but I do believe like it's an MMO, okay?
Right.
It's not an RPG. It's an MMO RPG. So I do believe that at some point there should be some forced like group activity, right?
MMO takes precedent over RPG when it's an MMO RPG.
Yeah.
Only a little bit, but yeah, it does.
I don't think it needs to be like all the time and in your face and stuff like that, because that kind of thing will ruin the game. But
you should be able to do a good amount on your own.
Yeah.
But if you shouldn't be able to do everything on your own.
No.
And 50 group or 50 man group situation, that is just, I mean, that's going back even more than WoW had when it first came out. Like 40 man raiding was a big thing, and then it was immediately scrapped. And the reason for it is that it was hard to find 40 people to do something with.
So I'm looking at this.
Imagine managing 40 people though, and 50 now. I mean,
yeah, sounds insane. Like, because
I can see it
watched
though.
Stuff on like
I think companies are guilds.
ESO, and it's 12 people, and that's a lot. Like,
I imagine that this game is really going for more the overwhelming odds or overwhelming numbers.
Well, you have invasions.
You really like your touchscreen, don't you?
I do. I enjoy it. Like, just when I need it. So, invasions, the group combat invasions seem to be more geared towards a PvE thing, because it mentions attacking waves of monsters. War, however,
that seems only
is a PvP, like right up in the front. You know, war is the pinnacle of PvP in New World. So
I would hope so. That seems very pinnacle like.
Yeah, like
so
it's called war.
I've pulled up over here the crafting skills, and there are 7. It is weaponsmithing, can create melee weapons.
Yeah.
Armorers craft soft and hard armors. Jewelry crafters craft trinkets. Engineers craft ranged weapons and ammunition. Arcanists will craft potions, tinctures, and magical weapons, that's awesome. Cooks can craft meals and non-magical drinks, and furnishers craft furnishings, storage, and trophies for houses.
So there is a housing system. That's interesting. I hope it has some kind of place other than, because like I enjoy ESO having it. I just wish it had a reason. Which coming up, it's going to have a reason, right? Like,
so ammunition though.
Yeah.
That's something that's gone from the MMO.
Yeah.
I mean, WoW had it, and then
It sounds like, so from what you just read, it sounds like it's one of those things that's, so it is jobless or classless or whatever, but it's like, it's not jobless. It's classless, but it's not jobless. Like you're not stuck into, I have to be this way and exist this way. But if I choose to do these things.
So they have a tier system for ammo.
Well, yeah, I would imagine.
Well, I know, but I mean, I'm saying it's kind of crazy. Like, look, some of them come from war. Some of them come from, most of them come from the workshop. And you even have to have a requirement of engineering to craft some of these, which is obvious, pretty clear on its own.
That would be probably in your, attribute skills tree or something.
Right, but you have steel cartridge and arrows. You have star metal arrows and cartridges.
Right.
Or Orcanium or Shimnum, whatever. It's Orcish.
Yeah.
Orcish arrows and cartridges. Yeah, and iron, and then...
Do they call it Orsinium?
It is... Here, you can try to read that. Orichalcum?
Yes.
I don't even know how you're supposed to...
I know that word from Final Fantasy.
All right. Well, good. So, I'm kind of really looking forward to that on the game. The crafting styles and shit, or not crafting styles, the crafting of materials that you have to use.
Yeah.
Because I really, really liked ammo in WoW.
Yeah.
When I went back and played classic WoW, a lot of people are like, why would you enjoy ammo? It's something you got to keep track of. That's a reason you have to leave now.
Right.
Managing yourself within the world you're in is part of an RPG.
It is.
Like your
And
gear
it
breaks.
creates immersion into the game.
Yes, and that's like with Morrowind and Oblivion and Fallout, like the older ones. Like when your gear broke or was getting worn out,
Yeah.
it was time to go fucking home.
Yeah.
Like I remember back in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, the lower condition your weapon was, you had a chance of jamming. And so when you went to reload, it would take a whole second or more longer.
Right.
And that's like something that you now have to your weapon is now fucked up.
Right.
You better figure it out.
So it operates as such.
Right. And that's an older game now, but like ammo was a really important thing in these games. It was a way for you to feel even more part of the world.
Right.
It's because you aren't like you shouldn't. I mean,
So
yeah.
I'll say this: it does
And
in
Skyrim
a
made
very
it easy.
rudimentary way, very very like simplistic way. It does seem to have stayed intact in some fashion. It's albeit it is very simple, but like recharging your enchantments in ESO, right?
Yeah, it's
So-
similar to that. Yeah.
It's a thing, or like you have to repair your gear and stuff
Right.
like that. But
It's definitely something that that ESO even has stripped it down more. Because I mean, you can recharge on the fly,
yeah, you can. I'm just saying
but it is there
so.
should be restrictions on the player for just running in willy-nilly.
right.
And if you're gonna be stupid about it, you're gonna get stupid answers. And
Yeah.
I like this. I like ammo coming back. I like stats coming in. I know that their stats also just apply to weapons. So, like, Constitution is your health pool, obviously. Focus is mana recovery rate. Intellect governs your power with magical weapons and magical perks on weapons.
Right.
Oh, wait. So both purely magical weapons like the fire staff and the physical weapons with magical perks gain power based on your intelligence. I could see a build where someone uses a flame sword with high intelligence.
Yeah.
Dexterity governs your effectiveness with ranged weapons and some melee weapons. Bows and muskets both grow in power as your character's dexterity increases.
As it should.
Strength governs your power with some melee weapons. Heavy melee weapons such as warhammers scale their damage exclusively on strength, while lighter melee weapons like swords scale their damage primarily on strength but also on dex.
Which they should. It sounds like somebody put some thought into this system.
Someone put a whole and focus here seems to be a not purely, but a very focused down. Like, and this is one of the issues I have with ESO, which is that it's negative damage equals healing. This here is focus governs your mana recovery rate and is also the attribute that governs your effectiveness of life staff. Higher focus not only means you can cast more spells more regularly, but your ability to use the life staff is increased. It is a healer stat. I like healer stats.
Yeah, because that is not something that you just find anywhere. Like, it probably exists in some like dark corner of the gaming world.
Yeah.
But like, it's not a common thing. So it's good. Like, the more we talk about this, the more interested I am in playing it.
I'm actually really like, the more we've been talking about this, I kind of just want to buy the game. I just do it. Like, it seems really great.
I will say though that I'm sitting here looking at my laptop screen and it says launch day update.
I believe that it's an MMO. That is part of it.
That goes back to like, have your shit together though.
They
like,
should. They should.
Maybe it's just my opinion. And look, I wanted to be a game developer at one point.
I can see that.
That was at one point that was the profession track that I was on. And like Full Sail University and all that stuff. Like, I don't know if it's okay to name drop, but yeah, it was that. So like Harvard.
I mean, that's a very big school though.
That's like the Harvard of game development.
Right.
So, but like when I think about it, I think about it from this aspect. Like, if it's not stable, you can't put it out because it's gonna break, and then you're gonna make everybody mad.
Right.
Like,
from what I've heard though, the frame rate and all the graphics and stuff, they look great. I know that they have that issue there with the servers, but I do think that from what I've been reading about this game and looking at online, I think I'd be willing to put up with some of it to play it, but I would rather it be fixed, and at least they're putting updates out that do fix it.
It's a new. I'm gonna say it. Like, it sounds exactly like Albion Online, which was an interesting game.
You did seem to enjoy it, actually. It wasn't necessarily for you, I don't think, because of the top-down nature.
Well, I think, I don't know exactly what put me off to it. I enjoyed the concept of the game. I just didn't like that particular game.
Yeah.
So
this game does seem to be very focused on the old RPG stuff, though.
It does, and that was the reason that I liked Albion so much, because you could go into your specialties, right? Like, you're not just automatically something. Like, when I play ESO, I'm a sorcerer. I'm stuck with certain skills. Or I'm a Dragonite. I have a Dragonite character.
Right.
I'm stuck with certain things. I can't branch out and do other stuff, which means my character is now limited, right?
Which is part of the game design, and that's, in a way. But, you think about it, like, if you play D&D, which we've both played D&D.
Right.
You can make, almost anything you want, especially if your DM allows, like, homebrewing a little bit.
Right.
And considering that, like, you could just take points in Wizard.
Right.
And that makes you more wizardy, but that doesn't mean you're a wizard.
Right.
But it means you have wizard spells now.
Right. So that's something I like seeing games get back to, is the ability to, you know what, I think I'll say this. That's why Final Fantasy X was so successful. Because, so you had the sphere grid and everybody had their own respective one. But then you had a way to make the character like Titus, okay? Titus was your main character. He had his own sphere grid. Once he completed it, he could go into like Lumina or Auron or somebody else. He could go into another person's sphere grid. So he could pick up their abilities. Like, now he's not just a fucking melee character who has like weak ass healing spells.
Which means that everyone can eventually grow exponentially.
Yes. Right.
And it's a way to add longevity at the end game as well.
It is. You still have stuff to do. You have and
I imagine the builds on this are going to be crazy big. I can imagine some of them.
They will be so complex, like, or at least they should be, right? Like, because you have the option of, I can do whatever I want with this character. So, like, I can make it, like, I mean, literally whatever you want. Like, you have, it's at least the way it's posed. Now, I haven't, we both said we haven't played the game.
Right, and we definitely need to play it more to actually give that kind of information on it. But I do, from what it seems, and what we're seeing, and what I've seen specifically from gameplay, it looks fundamentally like a older styled game put into a new modern spin.
Which means it's probably going to get nerfed at some point.
It probably will, and
that's thinking about it.
That's just how MMOs happen sometimes. But hey, I will say this.
You know what? It's not the MMO, it's the people that play it, and it's not everybody that plays it. I'm not going to say that.
It's a very vocal minority of people who don't like traditional RPG elements in their MMOs.
It is.
But we definitely...
And single-player games like Skyrim.
Yeah.
Get fucked.
We're definitely an older mindset on it, though. We definitely do. And
they're good games, though. They make for good games. That's why. Like,
grindy as hell, too. It's weird that we like grindy games.
This is like...
But I love them.
A visualized version of Dungeons & Dragons is what it is.
It's what it seems like,
That's what the roots were of these games.
And you know what? I hope these roots don't wither off and die. I hope they keep developing them. I will say this, though. So following up with the crafting, I've looked a little more into it.
Yeah.
They have gathering skills and refining skills.
Yes.
Which means they need to be leveled up individually.
Yes.
Which is even more. I mean, if you're mining ore, you're going to be leveling up smelting. But that means that, like, I mean, hell.
Maybe.
Think about it this
just
way.
Sell the ore.
Yeah. Think about the people, though, like, the people who just buy their ore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then they're not going to have crafting, and they're not going to have smelting, and then they're going to be able to craft, but they're...
that doesn't necessarily mean that. Like, they might buy the raw material, right?
Yeah.
Like, so ESO has that system. You have a refinement thing. You gather raw materials and you refine them.
You can also
Now,
sell them.
with it being the way that it is, at least presented in this game, the way that it's presented in this game, you could just purchase all of your raw materials and then focus on refining and crafting, you know.
You don't even have to gather. Like,
Right.
there are steps here, and you could theoretically skip around.
Yeah.
You could become the best fishing harvester, and your refining skills might be woodworking, and you might be an engineer.
Right.
And that might be your character. And I mean, they might not work the same, you know, might not always be 1-to-1, but like, hell, you might make a lot of money doing that.
Yeah, you could.
I mean, you could do theoretically all of this stuff.
So that lends credence to, even if they're not, there should be complex builds.
Yes.
A little more complex builds going on, you know, with your character. Like, you create a character that specializes in these things, and it's not the entire thing. Like in ESO provisioning, you have to get good at all that stuff. Otherwise, you're not going to be good at any of it. You
Right.
know? And that kind of pigeonholes you. And that's something you know what, that's probably it. That's what I don't like in games where you get pigeonholed into, you have to do this. Otherwise, you're going to suck. You're not going to get, you know, there is no other way for you to get good at it.
Right.
And I don't like that.
I don't either. I think there should be allowing people to kind of grow themselves in the way they play.
Yeah. When you have a sandbox game, I'm gonna start saying that word. When you have a sandbox game like this, you can do whatever the hell you want to in a sandbox. Like, you can build a sandcastle, you can dig a hole, you can do whatever you want to. And nobody should be able to tell you, hey.
Sandbox games died though, and now they're coming back.
But they haven't. That's the thing. That's why I said I'm gonna start saying that word again, because like open world RPG or open world games are sandbox games.
They just have missed them at some point. Yeah.
They have separated the idea and made these massive maps that don't have shit to do in them, but like this is what an open world game is supposed to be.
Right.
It's and you know what? Maybe that's what they're calling this game, but it is a sandbox game. Is what it is. There's an area that you can do whatever you want to in it. There's probably some limitations, like you can't interact with like rocks and shit, but like you can do what you want to do in this game.
Right.
You know, and I'm from the way that I'm reading it anyway. Like the more that we've talked about it, like I'm gonna play this game and find out if it is what it says it is. I'm gonna wait a little bit so I don't deal with the being pissed off because it takes me 3 hours to get into the game, because then I won't play it.
See, the thing is, I understand the complaint. I do understand fully the complaint of the queue. That is a full-on, I agree with that. That is an issue that needs to be solved. However, I do think there is an issue that we haven't talked about yet.
What?
The review bombing of this because of it.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are being... Okay, I understand. This is a complaint. This is something that should be complained about.
Right.
But you can't judge the game until you've played it.
Right.
Like, fully.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people are giving this game like 1 star or like 0 stars or whatever they can. They're giving it the worst review, and they're saying, you know, I couldn't even get in. And it's like, I understand that that's an issue and that it should be solved. Maybe hold off on your review and wait to play it first. I understand that it's an issue right now. Complain about it all you want.
Yeah, and there's probably a channel for that besides reviews.
But I've noticed, like everyone who I've been looking at these reviews, and from players and critics love it, of course, because critics are always gonna do that. But like, you know, game player, the people who've played it, everyone who's played it that I'm seeing has really, really enjoyed this game.
Yeah.
But the people who have waited in queue have all given it like 0 score, which means it has a mixed score.
Right.
It makes it very muddied for the people who do want to play it.
It does. And
it makes it harder to tell if the game's good or not. And I know that a lot of people haven't gotten to try it yet because of this.
And And all right, so I'll say this too: if any of these people that have left negative reviews, bringing down the game's rating, like the actual game's rating, because they had to wait in queue, like if they have to remember, if they've played any other MMO, they have to understand that happens. Like,
Yeah.
it's a thing. And like we've talked about that already. Like, it's a thing. When they launch, they don't think like it's not. They think, all right, maybe it's not going to be as big as we want, but we're going to go so far to support a certain amount of usage. And if it exceeds that, now you have downtime, excessive wait times in queue to get in the game, and things like that. Like, if you've played any other MMO, you're really just being ignorant in leaving a negative review for a game, saying the game's bad because you had to wait in queue, because that has zero to do with the game. That is the infrastructure that the game sits on.
Yeah.
The game could be awesome. The infrastructure right now is obviously junk. And it's not even that it's junk, it's just not big enough to support what the amount of users that have decided, hey, I'm going to play this game.
And it is kind of crazy though. I understand why people are upset. They have a verifiable reason to be upset. I just don't think that you can say the game's a 1 out of 10 until you've played it, and if you haven't gotten in to play it, then I don't know if you can give it a 1 out of 10.
No, absolutely not.
It's something that I understand that the infrastructure of the game, the servers themselves, are trash right now. Like, they're just not big enough yet, and that is a very big concern.
It is,
but
it's equally understandable though.
Yeah, and I'm not upset that people are voicing their concerns. That is not the point of this right here. What I'm saying is I do think people do have a right to do this. I just think that it definitely does muddy the water and blur the lines a bit.
It does.
And I from what I've read and what I've seen online, this game is good. Yeah. It's just not infrastructurally there yet.
No. And so it released 2 days ago.
Yes.
This is probably their mindset. We're going to release this game. They had a project, like, laid out plan for this game. They had projections of how many users of the game they thought they could accumulate
on day one.
Yeah, on day one. And they exceeded it, which is good, right? Like, that's a good thing.
But they just weren't ready to exceed it yet.
No, because what they did was they built the infrastructure for the game around the projection that they had.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'll
voice your opinion, but there's probably a more there for sure is a more proper channel for that, other than I'm going to give this game I don't know how many,
a 0 on a scoreboard. Yeah, and it's
and it has nothing to do with the gameplay, and it has everything to do with the fact that this game came out and was popular enough that it crashed it.
It's very... This is going to get me canceled for saying this, but it's very cancel culture-y, isn't it?
It is. It's...
It seems that way. Look, we still haven't played it, so maybe the game is garbage.
It's entirely possible.
But I haven't seen very many reviews that say it's a bad game.
No, I haven't. I haven't either.
I've seen most. Whenever we do read those negative reviews, what do they always say?
Queues.
That's the first thing, and then,
90% of them are queues, maybe higher than that.
And there are some that actually do have valid concerns.
Yes.
And that is good.
Yes.
Those are valuable input for the game developers.
Yes.
But and servers are valuable input as well. But yes. I would say that this definitely seems a little bit, I don't know. I mean, it is a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, so fuck them a little bit. But still, it's like, you know what I mean? It's still one of those situations where if the game's good, it's and then I don't know. Maybe just give it a little bit.
Yeah, it's not
Like I'm doing that with Cyberpunk right now. Like the game was fun, but it was flawed heavily. They're fixing the game as and I bought. You remember that? I was very disappointed with it. But what have I done? I haven't written a review. I've uninstalled the game.
Right.
And I have determined that whenever I have read enough about it, and I don't keep up with it. That's the thing. If it wants to pull me in, it has to do it again.
Right.
And that's what I've done. I said, look, I paid for the game. I still want to play Cyberpunk.
Right.
But I will wait until it is done, and then maybe I'll write a review for it, or maybe I'll talk about it.
Right.
On the channel, probably.
Right.
But I don't care to talk about Cyberpunk, really, or play it right now, because it's just a buggy mess.
Yeah.
But when I do play it, I'll judge it off that. See, I did play it for a good 10, 15 hours before I was just like, I can't keep doing this. And
I remember that.
And it was a fucking great game, in my opinion. Now I know it was touted to be like a big like choose your own adventure thing, you know what I mean? But it wasn't all like that. It was more like Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. Which is honestly, that's kind of what I expected with it. Like, you know, the Witcher games, it came off those, but this isn't The Witcher.
Right.
And I'm actually okay with a singular story. I'm okay with a story that doesn't branch out too far. A lot of games can do that still. And a lot of games feel like they have the requirement to give you like four choices. Yeah. When in reality, you know, I like those games that you do have 4 choices. Yes. I also really enjoy a game where you have maybe 2. Yeah. Or 1 even. A singular story. A good enough campaign can draw me in through anything. Yeah. And making my own choices, even if they're not, you know, valuable on some of them. I just like the feeling of having a choice sometimes. Yeah. And, you know, Cyberpunk, from what I played of it, was a great game that is just fundamentally flawed through its structure, as we're talking here. Right. And whenever it's good, I'll pick it back up. Right. And with an MMO, I imagine it'll be fixed soon. Yeah. I imagine, and this is purely speculation, we don't know yet. I would say a week. I'd say a week before they figure something out and either have a blog post telling them what they're going to do, telling the people what they're going to do, or something will be done. I would say at minimum, it'll take a week before we have an answer on what's going on. And that is my foreknowledge on MMOs of other companies, to be fair. So it's not like a fully accurate claim. Right. But if I had to make a claim, I'd say 1 week before we have at least an answer as to what the plan is.
Right. All right. Well, we have been going on for nearly an hour and a half. I think we've had some good discussion. New World definitely seems as if it is, maybe it's got some issues right now. That doesn't make the game bad. The description of the game and what information is available on it and the reviews of the actual game itself seems very much so like it's a game worth your time. Through this discussion, I personally have decided it's a game worth at least trying for myself.
And I will be joining you on that too. I would even say we'll probably put something out on the channel about it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So whenever we do get around to playing it, then y'all will probably all also be seeing that. And, you know, I'm really interested in the training mechanics. I'm interested in the skills and how they operate. I know that the game is flawed right now, but I'll probably jump in before you do. Yeah. Just because it's just, I mean, I'm really interested in new MMOs, but either way, this has been our Friday talk and about New World specifically. And if you've liked this kind of content, you know, talking about the game industry and our own opinions of what's going on with games in general, and or you know, if you're also someone who likes ESO content or even other games, because we do have stuff like that on the channel, and want to support our community and the community we're trying to grow around as well, you know, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you feel like you should. And also we have a video that shows on our channel now, where you can find us on Reddit, Twitter, and Reddit, Twitter, and also our YouTube page itself.
Yeah.
And
a Steam community.
A Steam community, that's what it is. We now have a Steam community as well. So if you all are interested in engaging with this kind of content more, maybe you have your own opinions of this, you know, leave a comment down below or even message us on the Steam community or anything like that.
Yeah.
Reddit is mostly ran by me, as Twitter is ran by Jack here. And if you have a question for either of us directly, you know where to talk to us now.
Yeah. I think that's all I have, and
yeah, that's it. I think I'm good. I need to go eat something. I am starving.
That's a problem.
That's a real big problem.
All right, everybody. We will
we'll see y'all later.
We'll see y'all in the next video.
I cut you off there.
You did.
That's all right.